Sarah McBride doesn't get a say. I mean, this is a biological man. He does not belong in women's spaces, women's bathrooms, locker rooms, changing rooms, period, full stop.
Republican Congresswoman Nancy Mace introducing a resolution to ban transgender women from using the women's restrooms at the U.S. Capitol. The move comes just weeks after the first transgender person was elected to Congress. Democratic Congresswoman-elect Sarah McBride will be sworn in January. She responded in a post on social media. She writes this, quote, "This is a blatant attempt from far right-wing extremists to distract from the fact that they have no real solutions to what Americans are facing. We should be focused on bringing down the cost of housing, health care, and child care, not manufacturing culture wars. Delawareans sent me here to make the American dream more affordable and accessible, and that's what I'm focused on." Some of McBride's soon-to-be Democratic colleagues defended the incoming lawmaker. Congressman Joe Morrell telling Axios, quote, "I think we have a lot of problems in America. I don't think spending time worrying about the restroom is an order of priority here." Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez called the move plain bullying, while Congresswoman Becca Balint said cruelty is the point. Our panel is back. Kristen Soltis-Anderson, trans issues became such a flashpoint in this election, in no small part because of that one ad that the Trump team put a lot of money behind that really broke through. The flip side of, talking about this is that usually these measures impact a very small number of people, whether it's transgender women and transgender girls in women's sports, or a situation like this where there is one member of Congress who is clearly being targeted by this bill. Clearly, Nancy Mace is going to get some attention for doing this. When you look at this back and forth, how do you see this cutting?
Well, first, I think it's important to unpack why that ad was one that Republicans ran so often and ultimately felt was a successful ad in the campaign. And I think it comes down to the very end of the ad, where it sets up this dynamic of Democrats are for this small group that you're not a part of. Donald Trump's for you. And so when the debate is what should be prioritized, should you be prioritized? I mean, that's an argument that Republicans found worked with a lot of voters. It is also true that over the last, say, 6-7 years, we have seen public opinion shift in a pretty significant way against considering gender identity ahead of biological sex. I mean, particularly among Republicans, it's something like 9 out of 10 believe that biological sex should be considered first. So that's part of why Nancy Mace is doing this. She's run afoul of Republicans in the past for anti-Trump stances. She's had quite a journey on that front, and so it wouldn't surprise me if this isn't part of saying, like, look at me, I'm a true conservative, I'm taking this action.
Let's watch the piece of the ad that you were just kind of running through that sets up this debate, or did, for the presidential election. Watch.
It's hard to believe, but it's true. Even the liberal media was shocked Kamala supports taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners and illegal aliens.
Every transgender inmate would have access.
Kamala's for they, them. President Trump is for you.
That last line, Lanhi, really seemed to kind of cut through. And to Kristen's point, there were some moderate Republicans, Axios reported, who were apparently open to the resolution. One said they would need more information. Another one said, quote, I mean, the presidential election may have been decided on this issue.
Yeah, I mean, the ad was very effective, and I think that for many different reasons, the cultural issues broadly, I think for Republicans, were effective throughout the country in 2024. The issue is going to be, it's a small Republican majority in the House. There's not a lot of room to sort of, there's not a play in the joints there. So I think the question is to what degree something like this potentially creates division within the conference ahead of what they will need, which is a unified front going into a lot of tough votes, a lot of very impactful votes on actual substantive questions in 2025. So I think that's really going to be the question. We'll see. I mean, I do think there's more of an openness, certainly more of an openness now to something like this than there would have been, let's say, even a year or two ago.
It does. Sorry, Kate, go ahead.
The irony here is that Nancy Mace is kind of doing exactly what the Trump ad accused Harris and the Democrats of doing, which is zeroing in on this cultural issue as opposed to focusing on these bigger issues of, I shouldn't say bigger, these other priorities of, cost and, making things more affordable and improving the economy. And so, I think sort of to Lanhi's point, I mean, I think the question is, does this kind of, does this land as like a division in the Republican caucus? Because it's this question of okay, well, now you have power. What are you prioritizing? What are you going to focus on? And if Nancy Mace is coming out with this bill clearly aimed at one member of Congress, is that how Republicans want to defend what they're doing on Capitol Hill? I'm not sure it is, even though the trans issue itself, of course, did have salience in the presidential election.
Yeah, and salience in the ways that these things would affect a broad swath. Everyone who has a daughter in women's sports, that's one way to look at it. But when you're looking at it in terms of this is a single person that is being targeted, I do wonder how the politics of that are different. I also think it's worth noting that in the Senate, it took until 1992 to get a women's restroom with 2 stalls for people like Barbara Mikulski, who was really focused on this. So just keep in mind how long it seems to take Congress to get places the American public gets faster on these issues.
The first transgender woman elected to Congress is firing back this morning against a Republican lawmaker who's trying to bar her from using the women's bathroom. Congresswoman Nancy Mace of South Carolina introduced a resolution yesterday to ban transgender women from using the women's restrooms at the U.S. Capitol. In a post on X, Congresswoman-elect Sarah McBride responded with this, in part saying this is a blatant attempt from right-wing extremists to distract from the fact that they have no real solutions to what Americans are facing. She goes on to say we should be focused on bringing down the cost of housing, health care, and child care, not manufacturing culture wars. You can be sure this is not the end of that. John.
All right, Kate, thank you very much. With us now is Congresswoman Mikey Sherrill, a Democrat from New Jersey, who just announced she is running for governor of New Jersey. Congresswoman, thanks so much for being with us. Let me just quickly ask you what Kate was just talking about there, this measure being introduced by Congresswoman Nancy Mace to ban transgender women from using women's bathrooms on Capitol Hill. How will you vote on that if it gets to the House floor?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to ban people from using the restroom. Here's the thing. We should be focused on actually passing our appropriations bills. We still haven't funded the government, and this is in the waning days of this Congress. The Republican majority has been incredibly ineffective, and I think with these kind of culture wars that they keep trying to bring up, I think we see why. We need to get to work for the American people. It's why I'm running for governor, so we can actually address the real problems people are facing, such as housing costs and child care costs, and not continue to get into culture war issues that really distract us from, I think, delivering for people.
Republicans did run ads on that subject with some success around the country. I want to put up on the screen a tweet from our friend Dave Wasserman over at Red State, who tracked the rightward shifts in states around the country. New Jersey, where you were running for governor, had the second largest rightward shift in the election, 10% basically toward Republicans. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think we need to make sure that we are addressing the needs of people. So while the state trended red, my district, I think we did quite well. And that's because while I am wholeheartedly in favor of protecting people's rights and freedoms and will continue to do that, at the same time, we need to make sure we are focused on the things that make people's lives a little bit easier. So again, I have legislation to really address housing costs, to make sure that we can repurpose commercial spaces and brownfields into housing developments. Here in New Jersey, we're the most densely populated state, so we want to preserve open spaces and create more homes. I have legislation to drive down grocery costs and adding competition into the market. And of course, I'm constantly working to get rid of the state and local tax deduction cap. When we're talking to people here in New Jersey, too many of them are just saying, look, I look at the ladder of success and I feel like I'm slipping down it. We need to address what it is that's making people feel like they just can't get ahead.
How do you draw the line or walk the line between that? And in your announcement video, you really talked about being part of the resistance against what Donald Trump will do in the White House.
You know, what I said was that I am going to focus on making sure that we are addressing the problems, and everyone knows what those problems are, that the state's not affordable for people, that not everyone has access to all of the opportunity in New Jersey, and that, yes, we will protect rights and freedoms. But that would sort of, I think, miss the first two really key pillars of addressing what it is that we are focused on. If you know, we have attacks from Washington here in New Jersey on reproductive rights or how parents are able to raise their children, we're going to fight back. But at the same time, what we are focused on is making sure we can deliver for people.